Is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of. Let me say that again.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
You heard it there from Harden. How'd we get here, though? Basically, just follow the money.
9 points on 3 out of 11 shooting, 5 turnovers, okay? We're talking about a guy in James Harden who went 5 games in a 7-game series, scoring 4 field goals or less. 4 field goals or less. We talk about a 3-time scoring champion.
I don't see him as a max player. I don't see no other team out there going out there and knocking on the door, hey, we want to give James Harden a max contract.
We talk about a dude that led the league in assists this year. We talk about a dude that averages 20 in his sleep and couldn't score more than 4 field goals in a game 5 times in 7 games. 5 times in 7 games.
Not a max player.
Yeah.
I don't see no more explosion. I don't see the same James Harden. And another thing about James Harden is when I watch him play, he's not a winner. He can score the basketball. Well, he used to score the basketball at a high level, at elite level.
Sure.
Them days are numbered. He might go out and get you 40 points 1 game or 2, right? But he's going to have a game 5, a game 6, a game 7 when he doesn't score in the 4th quarter.
James Harden was so awful, so bad, he should actually shave his beard so he could hide his identity. Of course, Daryl Morey, his job, especially if he thinks about giving James Harden a long-term deal.
The relationship between James Harden and Daryl Morey, the president of basketball operations in Philadelphia, it's essentially fractured throughout this process.
Daryl Morey is a liar, and I will never be a part of an organization that he's a part of.
The Philadelphia 76ers and James Harden's relationship has seemingly gotten to a point where it is beyond repair. On February 10, 2022, the Sixers acquired James Harden in a trade with the Brooklyn Nets, giving up a package centered around Ben Simmons. The trade was a swap of 2 disgruntled players between Simmons and Harden who wanted out of their current situations and a change of scenery. Over 550 days later, the Sixers and James Harden have each gained nothing from this partnership. The Sixers and James Harden are both no better than they were before the trade took place, and now the beard has left the Sixers stuck at a crossroads. Welcome back to the channel. I'm Cole from Philadelphia Media, and today we'll be getting into James Harden's recent comments about Daryl Morey, as well as James Harden's history and where he and the Sixers stand today. If at any point you enjoy what you're watching, do me a favor and leave a like on the video. Feel free to leave a comment about your thoughts, opinions, or anything else. Subscribe to the channel if you want to see more videos like this, and lastly, I recommend that you check out some of my other recent videos. I've received a lot of good feedback lately, and to those of you who have viewed, liked, or commented, whether positively or negatively, I can't say enough about how much I appreciate you. That's enough of an intro, let's get to the video. James Harden is a very unique player, to say the least. His skill set is fairly unique in itself, but I'm talking more about the way he handles himself off the court. Harden played for the Thunder for the first 3 years of his career, winning the 6th Man of the Year award in 2012. Harden was due for an extension after that season, but the Thunder had just given new contracts to Kevin Durant, Russell Westbrook, and Serge Ibaka, leaving them with enough money left over to offer Harden a 4-year, $55 million extension. But this was $5 million shy of the maximum extension he could be offered by OKC, so he declined and instead decided he was going to leave. At the time, people speculated that Harden left the Thunder for a multitude of reasons, but Harden later revealed that it was entirely because of the money. He claimed that he sacrificed enough for them, coming off the bench and being the best in the league at it, and that they should sacrifice something for him by giving him a max extension. The problem was that the Thunder physically couldn't do it unless they wanted to pay a luxury tax penalty, so they said goodbye to James. The Thunder traded him to the Rockets, where they fulfilled his contract requests, and he was a happy man. Harden became one of the most prolific scorers of all time as a member of the Rockets, averaging nearly 30 points per game during his 9-year tenure in Houston, with his peak scoring season being 36.1. But Harden's time in Houston was certainly more beneficial for him than it was for the franchise. A former member of the Rockets staff summed up James Harden's time as a member of the team in just 3 words: whatever James wants. Whatever James Harden says goes was the philosophy in Houston, and that could be why during Harden's time, there were 4 different head coaches, just 2 Western Conference Finals appearances, and 0 NBA Finals appearances. Essentially, Harden decided when the team stayed overnight or an extra day on their road trips. That would be when they were in his favorite cities like Los Angeles or Phoenix, and he got to experience the nightlife. If the Rockets had 2 or 3 days off between games, Harden certainly wouldn't show up to practice one of those days because he was taking a private jet to Las Vegas. He also always, without a doubt, got to take off the first practice after the All-Star break each year for the same reason. People make jokes about LeBron being the real GM wherever he goes, making personnel decisions for his team, which he probably does do, but Harden 100% did that with the Rockets. Every offseason, he told them they better get some good players around him, otherwise he was going to demand a trade. He was the reason they fired head coach Kevin McHale, who I will remind you had a record 193 and 130 during his time with the Rockets. He was also the reason Dwight Howard and Chris Paul were shipped out of Houston. A former Rockets staffer said of Harden, he's never heard no before. A former member of the coaching staff said, if they have multiple days off, everybody knows James is going to fly somewhere else and party. But he's going to come back and have a 50-point triple-double, so they're okay with it. The philosophy within the organization was we are going to do whatever we need to do to keep James happy. Whatever he wants, he gets. But there's a difference between keeping your star player happy and treating him like a spoiled young kid. Another former member of the Houston coaching staff said of Harden, I don't blame James, I blame the organization. It's not his fault. He did what they allowed him to do. He makes a strong argument. Did Harden act like a spoiled kid who got whatever he wanted? Absolutely. But whose fault is that? No, Harden shouldn't be doing that, but if he can get away with it, then is it really his fault? It starts from the top down, and who was at the top of the Rockets organization at this time? Well, it might have actually been James Harden, but technically it was the general manager, Daryl Morey. Morey could have made an example out of Harden a multitude of times, showing the staff and players that this is not how we are going to operate.
Hey, stop that! Or like, hey, that's not allowed.
You can't just do whatever you want and expect to not face consequences. Only Harden never faced a single consequence, and Morey failed to ever go about the situation properly. There were two main players Harden ended up feuding with in Houston, with the first being Chris Paul. The Rockets brought in CP3 prior to the 2017-18 season to hopefully satisfy Harden's constant request of the addition of talent. They made it to the Western Conference Finals, where Paul got injured, and the Rockets eventually blew a 3-2 lead to the Warriors. The next year, the backcourt pairing grew extremely tired of each other, as Harden demanded the ball be in his hand at all times. Considering their two ball-dominant players, it was challenging to balance this, but Paul at least tried, whereas Harden would sometimes hardly even step over a half court when the plays weren't drawn up for him. Harden was sick of Paul and demanded that the Rockets ship him out of town in exchange for his childhood friend, Russell Westbrook. He once again threatened to demand a trade if Westbrook wasn't a Rocket soon. This led to the Rockets mortgaging their future for Harden's happiness, trading away Paul, first-round picks in 2024 and 2026, as well as swap rates in 2021 and 2025. Despite Harden's demand for him, Westbrook, similar to Paul, soon grew tired of Harden's antics. When he joined the team, he didn't know what he was in for, unaware of how the organization operated. He was reportedly appalled by the team's casual approach, and there was one instance where Harden was so late for a film session that Westbrook blew up and demanded they start without him. Head coach Mike D'Antoni explained to him that even if they started, they were just going to restart once Harden came, infuriating Westbrook even more. We still don't know who exactly wanted out first, but what we do know is that the Westbrook-Harden duo lasted just one season, as they couldn't stand being around each other any longer. During the 2020-21 season, Harden decided his days in Houston were numbered. At this point, Daryl Morey had stepped down, slipping out of the picture before Westbrook's departure. He officially stepped down November 1st, 2020, and a day later, he joined the Philadelphia 76ers as their president of basketball operations. At this point, ESPN reported that a high-ranking official in the Rockets organization said the franchise was willing to get uncomfortable going into the season with an upset Harden on the roster. Harden had become aware of the super team Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving were building in Brooklyn and wanted to be a part of it. He demanded a trade to either the Nets or the 76ers, as they were looking to be contenders that season, and he could once again be paired with Daryl Morey. Eventually, James got his way, as always, and was traded to Brooklyn. His time in Brooklyn as a member of the Kyrie, KD, Harden Big Three was riddled with injuries, missed games, and an overall inability for the three of them to be on the court together. Despite being together for nearly a season, the trio played just 16 games together. After 80 games in Brooklyn, Harden wanted out, and surprise, surprise, he got his way, being traded to Philadelphia for Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, Andre Drummond, and some draft picks. Now reunited with Daryl Morey, Jimbo would have an organization wrapped around his finger once again. Only this time, he wasn't the focal point. The Sixers already had a star in Joel Embiid. They seemed to gel in their time together, But I'm putting my prediction out there now that once this Harden-Sixers saga is over, an article will come out about how much they disliked each other. Or one of them, probably Embiid, will just come out publicly themselves and complain about the other. Or other teammates will eventually complain about the unfair favoritism Embiid and Harden were given. That's just a guess. Either way, I have a sneaking suspicion that things between Harden and the Sixers teammates were not always hunky-dory. So where are we now? Well, Harden claims Morey is a liar and that I'll never play for him again. That's kind of hard to do considering he opted into his Sixers contract this upcoming season when he had the option to opt out and co-play for a team of his choosing. But this situation is eerily similar to the one I talked about in Houston. Harden is disgruntled and the Rockets, or Sixers in this case, say that they're not afraid to go into the season with him being upset. Morey just came out and said that he was unmoved by Harden's comments and that he's not trading him. What happened in Houston was that Harden made a huge deal to the point where it couldn't be ignored any longer, and they eventually had to send him to Brooklyn for an underwhelming return. But in that situation, Daryl Morey removed himself so he didn't have to make the decision. In this one, Morey will either have to bite the bullet and trade Harden for a lesser return, or he'll step down and leave the picture. The only other option is to have another Ben Simmons situation, the exact situation the Sixers brought in Harden to get rid of, where a player is sitting on your roster, refusing to play for you. I could go into a whole nother video about the Sixers' incompetence, and would love to sometime, but this one's about James Harden. To me, all things considered, when you look at this situation, James Harden and Daryl Morey are both to blame. Morey let Harden run rampant in Houston, and when that backfired, he ran away to Philadelphia. Eventually, they came crawling back to each other, and Morey, foolishly, didn't expect Harden to act the exact same way he did over there. Whatever James wants. I want to leave you with this quote right here, from a former Rockets assistant coach in 2021 discussing Harden's departure from Houston earlier that season. A quote that 2 years and 2 teams later still rings true. "You can't get mad at your kid if you let him eat candy every night, and then suddenly one night you don't and they throw a tantrum. You're the one who let them eat candy every night." That's the end of this one. Thanks for watching, and as always, if you enjoyed, leave a like and comment your thoughts. Also subscribe and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss an upload and to let me know I'm doing something right. Lastly, feel free to check out any of my other videos. See you next time.